So I see that there are some people already that arrived. So, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first webinar organized by the Global Shapers Nishab about the importance of youth engagement during a global crisis. So before starting, I would like to ask our participants to write on the chat from where are they following us, which city or country. Let's see.
Comment je peux écrire converser?
Okay, Nice. What else? Geneva, Nice.
From Nice.
C'est un webinaire qui est organisé en vue de Global Shapers. Donc,
Paris.
Bon, ils nous entendent pas. Donc, je vais juste venir et écouter un petit peu.
We have some audio problem.
Okay, just write on the chat. Okay, great. So welcome to our webinar. First of all, thanks to our 3 guest speakers for accepting our invitation today. During the past month, we heard about hundreds of stories and initiatives launched by young people around the world, not only to help, but also to create some positive impacts and find solutions to this global crisis. So from Africa to Asia, passing by Europe and America, many young people and organizations took the lead to work hand in hand with their local governments. To know more about what have been done in the French Riviera and in Nice, as we have many participants from Nice today, we invited today a city councilor. She is young, a PhD holder in life sciences, European project manager at University Côte d'Azur, and she has been volunteering in various projects related to higher education, research, and innovation. We have today Auréa Cophignon. So, Auréa, what do you think about the importance of youth engagement in a global crisis?
Well, the importance of young people is very crucial. Thank you, Kenza, for this kind of introduction. I'm really happy to be here and to address this important topic. I wanted first to talk about the Metropolis Code d'Azur, that as a city and Metropolitan Councilor. So I can take a few words about it and then talk about a few initiatives of young people, maybe. Is that okay for you?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. So the Metropolis Code d'Azur is a beautiful territory with a lot of sun between the sea and the mountains. So I know some of you know it already well. It's about 49 cities and villages, representing 550,000 of people, including 35,000 students and 10 million of tourists every year. So it is the second destination in France for leisure and business tourism. So you can imagine the huge impact of the pandemic here. But before that, the 2 main objectives of the metropolis were to develop itself and to progress into a modern metropolis, focused on innovation by combining both economy and ecology, especially within the Eco Valley at Plaine du Var. But today, the 2 main focuses had to change. They are now on the economic recovery plan because of the pandemic, like how to provide tests, masks, manage all the rules to protect people, help the commerçants. And the metropolis is also focusing on the reconstruction of the villages that have been touched by the Alex storm. In la vallée de la Vésubie and Latine, the priority is the reconstruction of the road network and water treatment that was swept away by the storm and that will cost millions of euros and take several years to rebuild. So that's why today we really need to innovate and to be resilient. Like after the storm, you had a lot of young people that were collecting clothes, food to help the people that have been victims of the storm. And youth engagement is key for that because they have the inspiration and the energy, the skills that are required in this digital world. So there is this big changing. So I remember during the first lockdown, young people was organizing themselves to get some foods and basic products to distribute to all people, and so they don't need to go out. So they are taking initiative, and we really need that. This is just an example, but it was really a great, very helpful for all people. So.
Okay, thank you, Auréa, for highlighting the work of many young people in the French Riviera region about that. And talking about the youth engagement, I would like to give the floor to Francesco to talk about or to introduce the Global Shapers Nishab, who did many good job also in this crisis. So Francesco, you can
Thank you, Kenza, and I really love what Auréa said, about youth engagement. Indeed, it's hard to describe the energy and the commitment that this group, the Nishab, this group of people can bring. And I think the title, the webinar, fits perfectly the description of the Nishab, the engagement. Especially during this crisis, we have seen it growing up even more with initiatives, collaboration. The Nishab was founded in 2014 in the Global Shapers community. It's the initiative by the World Economic Forum. The community counts now 30,000 members, active members, young people between 20 and 30 years old, spread over 150 countries. The hub in Nice count 23 active members, and we see it growing every year with new members arriving here every year, and constantly new projects and initiatives on the different impact areas that are defined in the Global Shapers community. The impact areas are climate and environment, and the Nishab specifically works with local partners and NGO around Nice and Metropole on the waste management in this impact area, organizing initiatives, cleanup events, awareness campaigns. The second impact area is the equity and inclusion. For equity and inclusion, the Nishab works mainly in volunteering and helping who is less fortunate. We were there during the Alex storm. We donated during the Alex storm, and before the lockdown, some of our members volunteered in Ventimiglia border for food distribution for the immigrants community there. And finally, the final impact area, education and employment. We have some members in our hub who are mentoring students with entrepreneurial initiatives. And those members are as well trying to build a local entrepreneurial community for the entrepreneurs in the local area. These are the impact areas. The Nishab works as well in a cross-hub project, international projects. We have initiatives oriented in shaping the future of work and of our lives in this fast evolving world, in this world that changes and to which we have to adapt. The pandemic, in all this context, the pandemic has brought difficulties to everyone, to our hub for sure, and many are suffering from this crisis. I'm convinced that in this kind of moment is the young people with their energy and the spirit of initiative. The young people should step in, and it is. I like that it's exactly the subject of this webinar. What we will talk about today: how young people can step in, and what's behind as well the initiative of this great reset that we have heard about. This great reset, this initiative by the World Economic Forum, to which the Nishab would like to participate, is eager to participate. That means to try to translate the crisis, the problems of the crisis, in really real opportunities for real changes for the future. And this is all about Nishab. And that's all, Kenza. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesco. So, as I mentioned before, Francesco is actually the curator of Global Shapers Nishab. And as you mentioned, Global Shaper Nishab doesn't work alone, but with other partners. And one of our biggest partners was JCI, So he's one of our partners in the region to implement some projects. And we are glad today to have with us John De Rico, who is an entrepreneur and translator, but also a teacher. He is a Senate member with the JCI and manages service projects that aim to create positive impact in the community. You can go.
Thank you. Well, dear City Council member, dear Mademoiselle Cophignon, dear head of the Global Shapers community at the World Economic Forum, dear Wadia, dear head of the Nishab, dear Francesco, and dear Global Shapers, good evening. I want to start out by thanking Kenza for giving me this opportunity to be on this illustrious panel to address the Global Shapers community about youth engagement. So what I did was start out by defining what we're talking about, and the best definition I came up with was on the website actforyouth.net, saying that youth engagement is a result when young people are involved in responsible, challenging actions to create positive social change. And this means involving youth in planning and in making decisions that affect themselves and others. So there's kind of two aspects that I want to talk about or look at. First of all, that youth engagement is about getting young people to be stakeholders in solutions that will affect them and seeking their input when formulating the solution so that it feels less imposed. Today, we often hear the buzzwords co-construction and buy-in. And co-construction basically just means building the solution together. And the result of that is that it creates buy-in or ownership of the solution by all of the parties involved. If we want to look at this through the prism of COVID-19, we know that the government has taken lots of measures to protect vulnerable populations that are primarily comprised of individuals who are not young people. And these measures have had drastic effects on our local economies, on the job market, and the social well-being of young people, resulting, rightly or wrongly, in backlash among young people who feel that their futures are being jeopardized. So the question is, how many young people have been engaged in decision-making during this pandemic, and who are they, and are they identified as spokespeople for the youth? I think it's really telling that we have a city councilor who, by the looks of it, looks very young. Auréa, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I mean,
Sorry, I was muted. So yes, I'm 31, so not that young.
31. Well, thank you. Thank you for
young.
representing the youth as a decision maker in our local city council. What I was looking at, or I looked at the Youth Policy Orientation Council, which is a rough translation of the Conseil d'orientation des politiques de jeunesse, or it's also called the COGE, which is a French consultative commission placed under the Prime Minister and is responsible for creating public policy regarding youth or young people. It's composed of 79 members, and its president is currently working, and they're currently working on analyzing the implementation of the government's plan of One Youth, One Solution that was launched this July, facilitating access to youth guarantees, and increasing the access by more than 50%, recognizing social and civic skills developed from community service, and defining a strategy for a green and sustainable Europe. Specifically, as a member of JCI, I wanted to talk about one of our members, Johan Lacombe, from the JCI chapter in Dijon, who is a member of this council and who was chosen to represent JCI France's 1,400 members, and more broadly, the interests of young people in high-level government decision-making. Now, this is very high level, right? And you say, well, what about youth engagement at a low level? So at the local level, I think, and this is maybe my personal opinion, that young people aren't as involved as they could be and should be. How many young people do you know attend city council meetings? Or you can maybe tell us about, it's been a while since you've actually had maybe a physical city council meeting, but you probably don't see very many young people. How many young people today read their local paper and are aware of the issues that are faced, that are coming up in our local community? And personally, I think that one of the biggest tragedies of our time is that we have access to too much information, And young people are spending too much time in their sphere of concern and not enough in their sphere of influence. So what does that mean, the sphere of concern? A sphere of concern is really, really big, and it encompasses everything you might be concerned about: global warming, terrorism, elephant poaching, the destruction of the Amazon rainforest. There's so many terrible things, et cetera, in the world that you have no power to really change, and that results in a lot of frustration and eventually apathy. Well, I can't really do anything, so I'll just do nothing. On the other hand, those who think and spend most of their time in their sphere of influence, which is much smaller and which is within that sphere of concern, end up creating positive social change and thereby grow their sphere of influence. So coming back to Yoan, who I talked about earlier, he didn't end up on this youth policy orientation council because he was young and good looking and he knows somebody in government. No, it was because he worked on local projects that created positive impact in his community, specifically on the problem of illiteracy in companies that was awarded Best Project in France in 2013. Furthermore, Gabriel Attal did not ask JCI France to nominate a member because we have junior in our name or we're a bunch of young people, but because our organization worked on a theme which was civic and economic insertion of young people for 3 years, running projects all throughout France to help young people get jobs and capitalize on their volunteer experience serving the community. So my closing message, I suppose, in my opening remarks would be that young people, for all of you young people, is that you can make a difference and that government can't do everything and needs youth engagement to address all these problems of our time. And the best place for you to start is in your sphere of influence by engaging in your local community.
Thank you, John. So you introduced also what we will be talking about in our second part of this webinar. But before going to the second part, I would like to introduce you our beloved guest speaker, Wadia Hamza, who is the head of the Global Shapers community at the World Economic Forum. And Wadia, we want you to share your insights about the youth engagement during the global crisis.
Thank you very much, Kenza, and thanks to the Global Shapers, Nishab, Francisco, Niels, and all the others who are working behind the scenes for these sessions. Thanks to our two guests, Auréa and John. We're humbled for having you and for joining us for this session to talk about youth engagement. As Francisco mentioned at the beginning, the Global Shapers community is a community that was created by the World Economic Forum back in 2011 with one mission, which is to empower young people. And we empower young people through two main objectives. The first one, by amplifying their voice, and two, by enabling them to self-organize for impact. And that's where the World Economic Forum comes to a definition of youth engagement. We don't organize youth, we enable the platform for them to self-organize themselves, and we give them the seat at the table wherever the agenda is shaped. And that's very important because when we talk about the different stakeholders, the decision makers around the globe or national level or the local level, young people are usually left behind. When we see the statistics at any level, we see that at minimum, youth will represent 50% of the population. And what it says that any decision that is taken today will be lived by young people. No, not the people who took the decisions. And there are many examples that if we look at it, for example, let's take Brexit. Brexit, if we do the vote again today, only with the people who died from the Brexit till now, the results will be different. Just with the people who died. So that shows also that the people who are taking the decisions today at any level are not the ones who are living. And that's why it's important to bring young people to the table. The other aspect why it's so important for us at the World Economic Forum, but also for all our partners, it's because young people are central to solution building. We need to change the narrative that youth are the problem. When we talk about education, it's about the youth. When we talk about youth unemployment, it's about the youth. When we're talking about violence, it's the youth. We always bring youth to the problems. However, youth can be part of the solution. And that's what we strive for. That's what we fight for in bringing them to the table as one of the stakeholders, like the head of states, like the business sector, like the civil society, so that we can engage, come up with projects, come up with initiatives, and bring the freshness of young people into the decision making.
Okay, so thank you, Wadia, for your insights about the topic. As you said, youth are not the problem, but they can be parts of the solution. So now we will go to our second part of this webinar, which will be about questions and answers for our guest speakers. So I just want to mention to our participants that you can ask your questions on the chat, and we will make sure to answer if we have time for that. So my first question for Auréa and maybe all of you. As young people, we do have a power, as all of you agreed, but how can we use this energy in a post-COVID-19 world?
Okay, my microphone is okay. Cool. So yeah, I think there are more and more opportunities for young people to get involved and to make a difference. The government at local, national, and European level, they know that young people are key to reach the global challenges and the sustainable development goals. So that's why you can see an increase of initiatives to involve young people. For example, they are putting more emphasis to support NGOs, they are organizing entrepreneurship contests, and many other events that most of the time are referring to the post-COVID context. So what you can do is to get involved in NGOs, politics, use social media and other digital tools that are very helpful to make an impact. I would say you should also work in teams, find synergies, and share good practices, because I believe that collective intelligence is very powerful. And it's just like John was saying, youth engagement is about co-construction. So you have to build the solutions together. And I think it's very important that young people can find a way to meet other people that have the same interests, the same goals, maybe for climate change, maybe for other topics that are important. And then you find your goal, you can try to work on it. And yeah, youth involvement is very important for that.
Thank you, Auréa. What about you, John? What do you think about how can we use this energy in a future world after this pandemic?
Like I said earlier, I think one of the starting points is look at your local paper and stop looking at the national news and the international news and all the problems out there. Focus on the problems really close to home. Identify them and find out ones that are also affecting you personally, because that's where you're going to be most passionate about them, and maybe you'll be able to get some of your colleagues and friends involved with, and start investigating the problem and digging a little bit deeper and asking questions. Well, why and why and why? There's methods where you can analyze this problem a little bit more, and then start getting, talking with people, other stakeholders, and that's how you're going to start co-constructing or building a solution together by then that investigation of the problem, working with the other people around you to find out more about it and say, oh, what do you think? And what do you think is a potential solution? And then building that solution together, implementing it, evaluating it, and then improving it. And that's basically a simple project methodology that I think that you guys use, and I'm sure you're well aware of, but it works, it's effective, and it all starts with identifying the problems that are close to home and that you can actually influence and work on.
Thank you, John, for highlighting again that the co-creation between all the stakeholders and civic society is really important in this to resolve the problem. What about you, Wadia? How do you think, or how can we rethink the world of tomorrow?
I mean, there is no magic recipe. If you dream of something, you have to work for it. That's it. You need to get involved. there are a lot of people that's like, why me? There is this, as John said, the curse of information, of knowing that you are aware of so many problems that sometimes you feel a responsibility on your shoulders, but you get so into everything that you don't do anything. And you should start by the local level. And that's also the essence of the Global Shapers community. Growing as young people, everyone wants to change the world. We dream of changing the world. But that's, when you think about it, it's from where shall you start? But when we see the power of local communities like the Shapers, imagine now Nishab is doing something great in Nice. Paris is doing something great in Paris. New York, Mogadishu, Gaza, Shanghai, Cape Town, Brasilia. And we have 440 cities where we are doing great things at the local level. Bring everything together, we're changing the world. But one local community at a time. So the only way to change the world and achieve your dream is getting engaged in your local communities with different stakeholders. You may disagree with whomever you want. The only solution to solve the problem is to talk to that person. We're seeing a lot of people are calling for, especially ideological differences or political differences, that why you are talking, why you are getting to that. But how are you going to change the world if you don't engage, talk, dialogue, and inspire or influence the other side? That's the only way to do it, and starting at the local level is key.
Thank you, Wadia. And I think one of the example of getting engaged with the local governments, Auréa is a good example for that. Do you think, Auréa, that there are many young people engaged in the local governments in Nice?
In Nice, there is some, like, it's the first time this year that we have so many young people as a city councilor. It was really an engagement of the mayor who decided to renew all the council. So there was 50% of new people for this time, for this mandate. And we have like one of them is 26 years old. It's called Greg Monetti. And he's working also for the ministry, Frédéric Vidal. So he's very young and very engaged. But before to start to do politics, he started to work in NGOs. So he was president of a federation of association for students. And it's the same for me. Most of young people I know, they start to be engaged in association, NGOs at local level or even national, European levels, and then they start to do politics.
Okay, that's interesting. That's a good start after the pandemic then. So we do have a question from one of our partners of Everyday Earth, who has a question for John and Wadia, saying, how do we as a network of diverse associations organize ourselves better to have more impact on a local level, going from ego to we go?
This is a good
Who
question.
want to start? John, Wadia?
It's an interesting question. It's an interesting question. For me, it's about the mindset. And that mindset starts by stop being interesting and start being interested. Interested in people, interested in your local community, interested in the different problems that are raging around your local communities. And that mindset will make a big shift in how those local networks, organizations, or associations strive for the collective rather than the individual. And moving from that ego to we go is very important. That is key also to make that shift.
Thank you. Do you want to say something, John?
Yeah, I guess it all boils down to leadership and the people who are, at different levels of the organization who make those overtures and go out. And I thank you, Vim, for the question. And I remember our meetings, sitting down and just talking about what we can do together. And that's what you have to do. You just have to take the initiative. If it's not your organization, it's the other organization. Potentially, if things are successful, you build on those initiatives. One small step. Okay, let's work together on this project and this project. Maybe we should, formalize this even more and create, kind of like a grouping of associations, which is a potential, but I think you need to start at the basic level of let's collaborate already on one project. Like we did successfully a few years back with the Global Shapers. We had a mountain cleanup up at the ski stations behind Nice, and a few members of Marie-Neige and Lily were up with us, and Maha, and we went up and we cleaned up the mountains. We collected about 500 kilograms of trash off the mountains. We had a fabulous day, and then we worked together. Okay, well, how can we help you in some of your events and move forward that way? So just taking initiative, meeting. I know it's difficult in these times and it's hard, but you guys made the first step right now. So let's look at what we can do, what we're working on, and how we can move forward from this event right here and maybe work on something in the future.
Yeah, sure. As we mentioned, it's something that we already do in the Global Shapers Nishab. It's about co-creating and collaborating with other partners. Now I do have a question for Wadia. So the World Economic Forum launched recently what we heard about the Great Reset. Can you tell us more about it?
Thanks, Kenza. Basically, the Great Reset is we need to respond to the extraordinary challenges and opportunities the world now faces. As we see, COVID is a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. Why? Because all of us have seen that there are so many things that are not working, from the health system to the education system to political system. Even I live in Switzerland, and we've seen the problems between the federal council and the local council. So there are many things that we need to change. It's an opportunity because everyone is ready to adapt. We've seen and we've done a report, for example, on the future of jobs, and we've seen that companies, 83% of them shifted to digitalization during the pandemic. We are using technology today in the way we were supposed to use it in 2030. I mean, Zoom existed before the pandemic. All laptops had cameras before the pandemic. We were never using them, but now everyone wants to use them. So there is an open window where we can do many things at every single level, being it education, being it the health, being it the big capitalist system, being the system in itself. So for us, it's an opportunity where we want to bring all the stakeholders basically to create, shape, deliver a collaborative solution to achieve a more sustainable, which is very important, more equitable, and more prosperous world for everyone, where everyone and no one is left behind. And basically, the Great Reset is mobilizing everyone across 5 thematics. The first one, how can we design a resilient social system? 2, how can we drive responsible business transformation? 3, how can we protect the environment for generations to come? 4, how can we harness the emerging technologies for good? And 5, how can we advance global and regional cooperation? And we think those are the 5 main pillars. If we succeed in tackling them and bringing solutions to everyone, I think we will be in a better place. So that's what the World Economic Forum is embarking to in the next months. And it's going to start by the Davos agenda, which will be in the 3rd week of January. And then hopefully with the special meeting, which is the replacement of Davos, that will take place in the 3rd week of May in Singapore, we will be able to bring, for the first time after the pandemic, all the relevant stakeholders for a face-to-face, because we need to build trust between a lot of those stakeholders so we can achieve some of those dreams that we are hoping for.
Thank you. And talking about trust, it's clear that it's important to have this trust between stakeholders. Recently, in France, we heard about some conspiracy theory about the Great Reset by a documentary. I don't know if the participants or our guest speakers heard about it. Hold Up. Do you have something to say about that?
I mean, I didn't see it, and I will not see it. Conspiracy theories are existing. Unfortunately, even the title or the concept of the Great Reset was hijacked by the right wing, and it started in the UK, then went to the US, and then came to France. Basically, I mean, I love the proverb, when you're doing extraordinary things, believe that you will face extraordinary challenges. And those are one of those challenges. We believe in our mission of improving the state of the world. When we talk about reforming the economical system to multi-stakeholder capitalism, what it means? It means the capitalist system was built on Friedman's concept of the business of business is business. And we disagree with that. The business of business is to involve all the stakeholders at the local level or global or national level. When we talk about stakeholders of business, who are they? One, the people, being it the staff or the consumers. Two, the planet, and then the profit. We're not saying that you should not be profitable, but you cannot do it on the back of the planet, and you cannot do it on the back of your staff or your consumers. If that's a bad thing for a conspiracy, but too bad for them. But I believe in that.
Okay. Yeah, so John, did you heard about this conspiracy theory?
I heard about it. I didn't watch the movie, and I think you know, if you're not part of the solution, you might be part of the problem. I think that
Exactly.
you're spending time looking at all these things. So try being part of the solution. You'll see how complicated and difficult it is, and have a little bit more respect for the people who are working on solving the great problems of our time. And it's really easy to take a back seat and be a spectator and criticize and complain, but that's exactly what, you know, I started to stop doing maybe 15 years ago when I joined JCI and started becoming actively involved in my local community, because I was sick and tired of complaining and hearing other people complain and not you know, getting in the driver's seat and trying to fix things.
Yeah, it's also something that you mentioned before. People are getting lost with a lot of information. So people should pick their information and know what to do, not only criticize, but be more effective by engaging and creating in an effective way. We do have, you want to say something, Auréa?
Yeah, and maybe I just want to say, whatever you do, you will have people putting out something out there.
Exactly.
So I think you should ignore them, and you should advance. If you believe in your values, you believe in your mission, you should advance and just leave those who are part of the problem, hoping that you will have time to dialogue. It's important to have dialogues with them. It's important to try to engage them, but it's also important to advance and progress.
Yes, Auréa?
I was just thinking, I agree with what all has been said, and it's true that with social media and social network medias, there is a lot of information, and we are fighting with fake news all the time. And it's very difficult to educate people to know how to find the right information. And this is something we need to change. And yeah, I think it's very important.
So is the Metropolitan of Nice doing any projects to fight against the fake news in this sense?
In this time, not really, because with the pandemic, it's true that it's not so easy to go to people, try to organize some events. But I know the University of Nice is working on it. Like they're organizing vulgarization event of science to explain people, to try to, for example, for the vaccine. You know that a lot of people are afraid of vaccine. And through the university, they are trying to explain why it is important, that it stops a lot of pandemics, and people need to trust, have more trust of on scientists. Maybe it's difficult to know why they don't trust politics anymore, why they don't. Yeah, I think it's not easy.
It's a challenge.
Okay,
challenge, yeah.
Thank you. So we do have two questions that about. Okay, sorry. So the first one is, how can we manage to convince older people that our engagement could be successful and innovative? who want to start?
I would say prove it, just do it. It's not going to be perfect the first time around, but if you have to take a first step and you have to show them and run a project, have a day, a launch day, and it won't be perfect, it never will be, but it'll be something that you can improve on. Maybe you have to redo the project, maybe you have to rethink it. That if it is successful, it's going to help you grow as a person and allow you to have a bigger platform and maybe do even bigger things and impact even bigger. So start small, but just do it.
I'll answer it with you need probably three things. One, credibility. Two, experience. And three, influence. And what John said, if you do a project, you will get the three of those. No one ever will give you a seat for your eyes or for your name or for anything. So that chair, you need to grab it, and you will only be able to grab it by your credibility, your experience, and your influence. And that, if you bring a project with you on your hands, no one can discreditize you. If you come and it's like, oh yeah, I have a solution, and you are like 60 zillion other people who said the same things. But how many people are bringing and putting on the table a project or putting in something, an action that was done, delivered, that's it. And that's what also, if you see in the Shapers community, we push all the hubs to have at least one project per year. At least one project per year. And sometimes projects, when we speak about projects, people think it's something big. It can start by going to your high school and just helping students to have their CVs. Or it starts by mentoring someone. It can go by cleaning the mountain like you did in Nice. And small actions will make you credible because people will start to talk about you, about your actions. You're getting influence, you're getting credibility and experience.
Yes, step by step. Maybe Auréa, too, did you live these kind of situations about?
Yeah, I had some difficulties at the beginning, at some in different experience actually. Like the first one was when I was doing my PhD in life sciences, and we had this opportunity to create a startup. Like I worked 3 years on that project to try to find a new solution to reduce side effects of chemotherapy treatment. And so we had this opportunity to raise funds and to create a startup. And I wanted to do it with my supervisors and to be between of the funders, because for me it was my work for my 3 years work. And they said, but you are too young, we will be the funders and we will hire you in that company, in the startup. So I say, what? No, it's not fair. I don't understand why you want to do it like that. Especially they were already a director of their own laboratory, so they have a good career. They didn't need to be, So it depends on the mentality also. Sometimes you can have some difficulties. So at the end, I let them, I go out, like I say, okay, I will do something else. I didn't want to continue to work with them. And I had great other opportunities after that. But for politics, for example, it's true that at the beginning, maybe they don't look at you like with a lot of credibility because you are young. But when you know your topic and you have good arguments, you start to talk with them. They understand that, okay, they know what she is doing. They know what they are talking about. So they will start to trust you better and to give you more credibility. But it's true that, as Wadia said, you need to work a lot and to make to show some proofs that make actions, show results, and yeah, at the end they will trust you and give you more credibility. But it's true that at the beginning, for me, sometimes it was a bit difficult. So you need to fight, work a lot, and to make the proofs. Prove yourself.
I think got another story just related to that. You never have a second chance to make a good first impression. And that's really important. And I remember getting a job one day when I was 18 years old. I wore a suit and I went into the nicest French restaurant in Minneapolis where I grew up. And the guy hired me. I had very little experience, 2 months working in a restaurant. And so he hired me as a waiter, and he told me, look, there was a guy who came in yesterday. He was wearing jeans. He had a couple of tattoos and earrings, and his hair was dyed blue. And he's been working as a server for 15 years. He had all the experience, but I just saw him and didn't want to hire him. So appearances are very important, and they help you make a good first impression. So dress, dress appropriately. When I started my business, people told me I had a baby face, so I grew a mustache, and I had a mustache for 4 years. It looked ridiculous. Now I shave because I don't want to look too old. But there's maybe little things, like sometimes you think, oh, we're young and we don't have to be informal or whatever, but sometimes you can dress up and wear a suit and wear a tie and look respectful. It will help you gain the respect of the people that you're dealing with.
Okay, thank you for sharing with us your story. It's interesting. So as young people, we have to prove ourselves. That's true. So now we do have some couples of questions again. Another one is for Auréa. So how can the municipality of Nice support youth associations like Nishab in the city? Are there any examples of actual programs or projects for that?
There is every year there is call for application. Like the municipality of Nice is funding a project and also functioning to help the association to function all the year. So there is 2 different paths that you can use to get funds from the municipality. And I know some association of young people that are already receiving some support from the municipality. So yeah, there is solutions, and you have to fill a form and describe your project or why your association needs some fund to do your activities during all the year. And yep, there is a fund for that.
Thank you, Auréa. And thank you for the other guests for highlighting the importance of youth engagement during a global crisis. And we also discussed about what should be done and how can we deal with that after the pandemic. Before ending, I would like to ask you to share some happy ending with our participants to end up with some positive vibes about the power of young people. Who want to start?
I can start.
Okay.
I think it's the youth engagement is important from an aspect, at least from me, how I see it. It's important for you to be engaged because if they don't do it, there is no one else to do it. And here, I'm talking from a perspective that we are all privileged. We have the chance to be on Zoom today, which means we have internet. Only 3.5 billion people on planet Earth have access to internet. If we are connecting our laptops and our cell phones, 4 billion people on Earth don't have access to electricity. If we are here probably speaking on our second or third or fourth language, because we are well educated and we have higher degrees, only less than 2 or 3% on the world have higher education diplomas. So from that perspective, we are privileged, and we should not be ashamed of that privilege, but we should be ashamed if we don't use it for a purpose. And that's why young people come and have that responsibility to be engaged and make sure that no one is left behind. Because if we don't do it, there is no one else to do it. And that's a big responsibility on our shoulders. And we need to prepare the next generation for that as well, because it is as important as living planet Earth in a nice place or in a sustainable way where they
maybe I'll just tell you another story. A few years back, I think it was maybe 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, I was living up in a little village outside of Nice, and we were working on a project in our chapter on creating a new city in the mountains, because it was apartments were inaccessible to young people, and it was very expensive to buy an apartment in Nice. And there's just a housing crisis. It seems like there always is in Nice because everyone wants to live here and prices are so high. So we were like, well, let's build a new city in the mountains. And so I went, I just moved into this town, and I went to the city council meeting because I moved in and I wanted to find out what was going on and what was on the agenda. And I found out that they had a plot of land that they were going to be opening up and developing in the coming years. And they had an urban committee, an urban development committee on how that development was going to take shape. And because I went to that meeting and they had never seen a young person go to that meeting, they offered me to be on that committee and play a role in shaping that development. And we wanted to do have it be sustainable and have passive houses and follow the LEED things that are kind of coming out today, but we were talking about this 10 or 12 years ago. And so what I wanted to tell you about this story is just that go out there and meet with people and meet your city councilors and meet the different associations and talk with people about the problems, and then just do it. Coming back to that thing, just do it. Even if it seems like it's going to be difficult, you'll build your credibility, like Wadia said, and your experience, and people will begin to follow you if you're leading by example. So
thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, I totally agree with John. Like, what I have been recruited to be city councilor is because I was involved in association at local level first. They were interested by the activities that I was doing in the city and how it was helping people in the city. Like, for example, with the Association of Junior Researchers, Kenza, you know it well.
Yes.
We organize some events to vulgarize and promote science in high school. So we are going in high school, talking with the young people, and trying to help them to have some dreams and look for new perspectives, give them opportunities to believe in science and also entrepreneurship. Like, this is a point that we are developing a lot, because doctoral candidates are often don't have the possibility to stay in academia, and the labor market is evolving all the time. So you need to develop new skills, soft skills, transferable skills that will help you to go for entrepreneurship, why not, and other opportunities. But yesterday I was in a conference where a guy from the European Commission said it was about young people engagement also. And he said, I want that my children and grandchildren to live in this place in peace, enjoy their life like we did. And it's true that in this global crisis, we need even more inspiration, more innovative approach. And who else of the young generation to do that? So I want to say, keep going, keep pushing, and do your best to reach your goals and have the impact that you deserve.
Thank you, all of you. Thank you for our guest speakers for accepting our invitation for today and for sharing some good insights about the topic, and especially for giving hope to the attendees and for each one of us to follow and fight for a better place. And we as youth have the lead, and we should be proud of that and create and innovate more and more. So we will have a podcast, if you are all okay with that, from this webinar.
Yes.
And as I saw many people who are interested to sit on the table and discuss, and we want to take it from here tonight to create together a project and contribute in our local region to something great. So with the JCI, with the state of Nice, and also other partners who are with us tonight. Okay, great. So thank you, everyone. And I hope to see you another time for another discussion and for more co-creation.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. And looking forward to seeing you all soon.
Yep.
Merci.
Really, thank you.
Stay safe.
Bye.